Once upon a time there was a king and a queen who, although living happily in their castle, yearned to have a son day after day. One day, the queen was bathing in the river when a frog who heard her prayers told her, "My queen, you will soon see your wish fulfilled. In less than a year you will give birth to a girl." After a year the forecast was fulfilled and the queen gave birth to a beautiful little princess. She and her husband, the king, were so happy that they wanted to celebrate a great feast in honor of their firstborn. The whole kingdom, including the fairies, came to her, whom the king had specifically invited to bestow noble virtues on his daughter. But it happened that the fairies of the kingdom were 13, and the king had only 12 gold plates, so he had to stop inviting one of them. But the sovereign did not give importance to this fact. At the end of the banquet each fairy gave a gift to the little princess. The first gave him virtue, the second, beauty, the third, wealth. But when there was only the last fairy left to bestow her virtue, the fairy that had not been invited appeared very angry and said, "When the princess turns 15, she will puncture herself with the spindle of a spinning wheel and she will die." All the guests were left open-mouthed, frightened, not knowing what to say or what to do. There was still a fairy left, but she did not have enough power to nullify the enchantment, so she did her best to placate the sentence. She will not die, but will fall asleep for 100 years. After the incident, the king had burned all the spindles of the kingdom, believing that this would avoid that the enchantment was fulfilled. The princess grew and all her gifts flourished. She was beautiful, humble, intelligent, a princess from which everyone who saw her was enthralled. The day arrived marked the 15th birthday of the princess, and agreed that the king and queen were outside the palace, so the princess took the opportunity to tour the castle. He reached the tower and found an old woman spinning linen. "What is that spinning?" said the girl, pointing to the spindle. But he drew his finger a little closer and barely touched the spell, and the princess fell soundly asleep. The dream spread through the court and everyone who lived inside the palace walls began to fall asleep inexplicably. The king and queen, the servants, the cook, the horses, the dogs, even the kitchen fire fell asleep. But while in the interior the dream seized everything. Outside a hedge of wild rose bushes began to grow and ended by surrounding the castle to cover it completely. That's why the princess began to be known as Rosa Sylvester. The Sleeping Beauty. Over the years many intrepid gentlemen believed they could cross the rose garden and enter the castle, but they were wrong because it was impossible to cross. One day the son of a king arrived, and set out to try once more. But as the enchantment was about to break, because it was nearly 100 years old, this time the rose bush opened before him, letting him in. He walked through the palace until he reached the princess, and was bewitched to see her. He approached her and barely kissed her. The princess opened her eyes after her long sleep. With it were also slowly awakening all the people of the palace and also the animals, and the kingdom regained its splendor and joy. In that atmosphere of joy took place the marriage between the prince and the princess, and these they were happy forever.